they were the last resort by Alien Hero 71. The galaxy is not a kind place, and no one has suffered more at the hands of its unyieldingly ruthless calculus than humanity. They are a young species. They've barely been driving the stars for 12 of the years, and yet so much has happened to them in that short time. Among the spacefaring species of this galaxy, humanity is the only one who did not come to the stars by their own ingenuity and cunning. No, they were uplifted, forced to the stars because we needed them. The Stellar Imperium had conquered half of the galaxy, and their genocidal policies threatened to destroy all our sentient species in the galaxy. We had no more forces to recruit, and our armies and fleets were breaking. But we had a last resort. The humans came from a planet far more hostile to any sentient life than any other known life-bearing world, and evolving in such an environment made for the exact soldiers we needed. The history books will tell you that the humans were glad to join the cause, and the millions upon millions of young men and women we recruited did so willingly. But take it from me, I was there. We weren't asking when we requested human forces to fight our war. Despite it not being their war, the humans performed admirably. Nowhere in the galaxy could you find a species more built for battle. Where before we lost systems by the day, now the humans held the line, though at a great cost to themselves. Most officers assigned to command humans did so begrudgingly, and it showed. Humans were ordered to make suicidal charges into prepared positions, always choosing to hold off the foe as our forces retreated to safety. And yet, these cruel orders were always met and indeed exceeded. Not all officers leading humans were so heartless. Many respected these new people, who clearly had a refined understanding of warfare and everything involved in it. I was one of these. The humans I fought with served with admirable courage and honor, but no one who wasn't there has heard of us. The deeds of the human armies largely go unremembered. While our strongest and most honored forces were struggling with armies half of the size on garden worlds, the humans struggled against superior foes in every environment you can possibly imagine. From the coldest of mountain tundras to the most scorching desert, humanity fought and won, though often forgotten, save for the humans. They say you can still find the frozen bodies of their fallen in the mountains, and their bleached bones lying in the dunes. The war was nearly over, and to everyone's surprise, it seemed like we were actually going to win. Some realized the truth that it was the humans who had won it for us, but many chose to forget about them. Our enemy did not forget. They realized that but for humanity, their victory would have come long ago, and so they set to destroy the instrument of our victory. A strike fleet blew through a low priority sector, driving to the human home planet before we could stop them. A pitiful small defense force was protecting the planet, and they quickly fled, leaving the planet at the mercy of the enemy. There was no way to evacuate. We had purposely refrained from revealing FTL technology to the humans, and we had no ships to evacuate with. The planet was glassed by every possible weapon from an entire fleet. In a few short hours, that beautiful blue marble was changed into a brown husk, unable to support the life that no longer existed upon its barren surface. I was with my humans at the front lines. When it happened, the looks on their faces still keeps me awake at night. Anyone who says that humans feel nothing has never seen a human mourn. And yet, their despair rapidly morphed into a rage, so hot that they were beyond control. The humans under my command said nothing, but each knew what to do. Without asking or receiving permission to attack, they threw themselves upon the prepared defenses of a foe that outnumbered them 3-1. Nothing but their anger driving them. Their anger had bled into me, for I went with them, thinking it was suicidal. When the sun set that day, the enemy had been slain to the last, and we'd lost only a few. The humans reported that no enemy forces had attempted surrender, but something about that always seemed fishy to me. And so, we took that last planet, and soon the war ended. The humans demanded that every enemy involved in the destruction of Earth be executed for their crimes, but their surrender was to be conditional. And the demands of the humans were silenced to improve cooperation. Peace will prove no kinder to humanity than war. In the end, no one in the Alliance wanted to take on the supposed burden of looking after millions of primitive aliens, and so none of the many star nations granted citizenship or even asylum to humanity. The Alliance simply gave them a few obsolete cargo ships with barely enough space for the roughly 10 million remaining humans. And so memorials were built, speeches were made, and we returned to our lives. The humans eked out whatever living they could in the unclaimed space they were forced to remain in. Mostly mining, scrapping, and admittedly some less savory work. No doubt, further entrenching the negative opinion most have towards humans. Most people haven't dealt with or seen a human since the war. Not that many people want to. I've kept up with a few of the humans I served alongside. They deserve that much and are good friends, even if I rarely have the chance to meet them in person. Friends like Sergeant Vane. He insists to this day that I call him by his first name, but he still calls me Captain, so all's fair, I say. We first met when he pulled me from the flaming wreckage of my transport shuttle, and we've been friends since. He was only 18 by human years when he started fighting, but he was always one of my most valued soldiers. He helps with what's left of the human military forces. Even though they were all soldiers, only a few remained that way. And the fact that he remains my friend is something I am thankful for, even if I'm unsure I deserve it. Despite how much human blood our foes spilled, the Alliance has been rather unkind to him as well. He stayed in the Alliance military for a while after the war, as some humans did. He was used for certain experiments, supposedly, to improve the already hardy human body. Unsurprisingly, these tests failed, and in fact permanently harmed him. Where he was supposed to gain near complete resistance to disease, his immune system was functionally destroyed. Now, the man lives in an environmental suit. A single breach will kill him. I've spoken with him a great deal about it, and he seems surprisingly unworried about it. Apparently, he finds it humorous. Between humanity being forced to live on ships after losing Earth, and him being stuck in an environmental suit, it supposedly reminds him of a fictional species from some human video game. But I digress. Why do I write this? It's not as if anyone will read it but myself. Perhaps it's better to put my thoughts on the proverbial paper. Perhaps it's because I know that something is wrong. There's the ambiguity of the destruction of Earth. Despite the garrison fleet fighting, I've never found an image that proves the fleet that destroyed them was of the enemy. And in my older age, I begin to have doubts. I was an outlier. Most people mistrusted humanity, and many believed that once the war was over, it would be the best to limit how far they could spread. The humans don't know about this. Perhaps it's better they don't, and keep to themselves. When we ended the war, we had allowed a conditional surrender to our foe. Though we thought them too weak to ever fight us again once they installed a new government, one less keen on fighting. Humanity had demanded harder terms, but we had arrogantly brushed them aside. I remember many humans grumbling about a 20-year armistice. Perhaps we should have listened. Now the year is 2034 by the human calendar, and already there are concerning rumors on the old borders between us and what remains of the Imperium. The new government has slowly grown more antagonistic, and it seems like another conflict is on the horizon, though I know we are not ready. Perhaps the humans could help us, protect us again, but why should they? What did we ever truly do for them? They were our last resort, but we don't deserve to have them help again. Perhaps we never deserved the help. Ancients, help me. They deserve to know what happened to the planet, even if it destroys the Alliance. Taken from the personal log of ex-Captain Critic Constal, 1 year before the beginning of the Second War. And if this concludes the data entry 144171. They were the last resort written by Hylian Hero 71. You can find the link to the origin below, and also the author plans to actually write more about the setting. And if you want to hear more stories of the setting or read more stories of the setting, then please subscribe to him and like his stories. And as a reward for staying until the end, here's a fun fact. Why is the Big Ben a huge tower with a clock in London called Big Ben? The origin of the nickname Big Ben is the subject of some debate. The nickname was applied first to the Great Bell. It may have been named after Sir Benjamin Hall, who oversaw the installation of the Great Bell, or after boxing's English heavyweight champion Benjamin Count. And also, I regularly upload my videos on Monday, 12 p.m. Middle European time zone. And the last thing, if you don't want to miss narrations, then just subscribe and activate the bell, and that's all. Stay healthy, sentient beings.